Let's take a breath together. Somebody was commenting earlier this morning how I challenge us, to which I responded some version of buckle up. This morning we're finishing our month-long look at protecting the vulnerable. And we've talked about empowerment. We've talked about translating heartache into action. We've talked about creating meaningful conversations. And we've talked about different worldviews, what to do with all of that. And we're finishing it up this morning with an exploration of heart-centered social engagement. That's a lot of loaded words all in one sentence, isn't it? Who wrote this? You ever have those moments where you just want to kick your own rear end? Is it just me? Interestingly enough, the word heart comes from cabbage. See, part of what I get by looking up these words is remembering the process of evolution, because we were an agricultural community before we knew anything about biological and physiological sciences. So now we relate to heart as the organ that keeps us going by pumping oxygen through our body via blood. But it actually started as a recognition of the center, the core of the cabbage from which the cabbage grows. Now, I think that's kind of powerful. If we really start understanding that the heart of anything is the core from which it grows, everything, then we start relating to this idea of heart-centeredness very differently. Because the truth is, the heart of all of us is creation itself. And how many of us, if we're being really honest, are living a life that is centered in an active, breath-to-breath awareness that that's who we are? I don't get there. I get there a lot more than I did a year ago. And with any kind of luck, a year from now, I will get there even more. But I don't stay there, because every once in a while somebody pulls out in front of me in traffic. Or every once in a while, someone does something in the human realm and doop, I'm right off my balance beam. And I invite you to begin to consider that it's less about staying on the balance beam and more about how quickly can we get back. Okay? Because I think it's unrealistic. I think we're setting ourselves up for failure if we think we're going to stay there all the time. It's certainly a goal. It's certainly something to hold as to work toward. And be gentle with yourself when you fall off, because we spend time not paying attention to falling off. That just delays our time getting back. Okay? So heart-centered social engagement. Social, quite literally, means relating to interactions and relationships. Okay? All of them, not just the ones we like, not the ones we solicit, all of them. Even my social interaction with the individual who pulls out in front of me. Okay? How do I interact? Because trust me, words, I don't have to actually have a conversation to interact. Okay? We have developed a specific sign language that salutes one another and informs one another that I think you're number one. How do I interact socially? How do I do that? Do I have my because I'm human and I have an autonomic nervous system that gets fired when I'm startled, that process physiologically takes about 17 seconds. So anything beyond that is coming from my belief system. Okay, it's coming from something other than my physiology, right? So can I instantly, okay, I'm all right. So you pulled out in front of me and we're both okay. Move on. Or do I have to write a scenario about your character because you pulled out in front of me? And then the minute I have a live audience, move my scenario into a short play by extrapolating on it. And by the end of the day, I have a novel. Where has my focus been all day? On a complete stranger that may or may not have been paying attention, may or may not have been having some mental, emotional, or physical crisis and not paying attention because they're trying to get to a hospital in a hurry, or maybe trying to go to the aid of a loved one. Trust me, none of those are in my novel. We don't know what's happening with other people. And if we focus on what's happening with us, it doesn't matter what's happening with other people. Quite literally, spiritually, it's none of our business unless they make it our business. Okay? Because you have your stuff, and you don't want people poking around in your life unless you invite them. How about extending that same idea to everybody else? Just a thought. Social engagement. We have, let's work on getting some clarity around the differences between involvement and engagement. Okay? Everybody is involved in this service right now because you're in the room. You're involved. You're here. It doesn't necessarily mean you're engaged. Okay? Some people may be sending text messages to somebody else. Some people may be writing a grocery list in their head. I don't know. You know at what level you're engaged. What I know is in a vehicle, a watch, a clock, anything that operates with gears, engagement is necessary for function. Okay? I can have a machine that has 20 gears that are involved in the casing of the machine, but until they engage, until they connect, until they mesh, nothing moves. It's just a thing that looks like a machine, but it doesn't actually work. And so we have a whole lot of social involvement that really lacks engagement. And so it doesn't work. It doesn't move us forward. It doesn't move us at all. It's kind of like those things we did as a kid, the staring contests, to see who's going to blink first. So we're all involved. When are we going to connect? When are we going to let go? Because here's the thing about gears connecting. They have to release their position. They have a holding position. But then there's a spring that has to release for them to connect. When are we going to release our individual position on matters that affect everybody else in order to engage? Because that's the only way we're going to move forward, is we have to engage. We have to get off our rightness. We have to get off of our superiority. We have to get off of I have the answer. And really think about that for a moment, that any one of us would have the answer for civilization. Really? Really? I think if we only needed one person to have the answer for all of civilization, there'd only be one of us. What would be the point of multiplicity and diversity? We have different plants in our yard. You don't water them all the same. You don't plant them all at the same time. And we learn that, and we cooperate with that. Yet when it comes to one another, somehow it doesn't translate that maybe we all need to be watered a little differently. Maybe we all need to be fertilized a little differently. Maybe we all need, some need direct sunlight, some need indirect sunlight. You know, some need to spend the winter locked in darkness in a closet, because some plants need that. I didn't know that. I found that really odd, but it works. That's what they need. Right? So what if we just wrapped our head around some folks need some things that we're going to find really odd? Okay. Doesn't mean they don't need them, right? So what Terry Patton is talking about in this book, and I keep messing up the title for some reason, for the life of me. New Republic of the Heart. I keep wanting to say a New Heart of the Republic, because apparently that's what I want. Ain't no shame in my game. The bulk of what I get from this amazing writing is that just maybe, and this is where it challenged me to the core, just maybe we have completely misunderstood and misinterpreted and are misusing our teachings too much in the direction of stuff, too much in the direction of manifesting the physical. Because really our teaching is manifestation is a part of it, but the teaching is really about embodying the truth of who we are. It's not about creating stuff. That's just part of what happens. And so if we go back to embodiment of the truth of who we are, of source, love, peace, presence, beauty, light, life, all that's invisible, right? If we maybe shift our focus to holding an experience of that in our awareness, we'll need less stuff. And we'll begin to heal this planet. It's a big part of what he's talking about. That our use of the creative process moved us forward into evolution in an amazing way. And then there was a tipping point where it began to hurt us. And the part that he really calls out, where I was like, I don't know if I want to say that out loud at the center. I don't know if I do. He talks about a consensus trance that we've all entered into, and he calls it goodism. Yep, I said it. Because sometimes we can tip over into actually intentionally manifesting unawareness behind, it's all good, as if something magical outside of ourselves is going to come along and save us from ourselves. And that is not what we teach. It's not what we teach. There's nothing outside of us. There is creation operating within each and every one of us. We get to individualize our use of consciousness. There's only one consciousness. And how we use it shows up in effect, shows up in form. And so what he's really calling us to do is to pay attention at a different level, to again embrace the both and, to look squarely at what are we manifesting, not what are you manifesting. We don't sit back and go, well, what are you manifesting? Because there is no me and there is no you in this thing called consciousness. There is our collective use of it. And if we sit around blaming one another, all we do is nothing. We just continue the path we're on, and nothing changes. Okay? Most of you know Hank from next door, right? Hank the Tank. If you don't know Hank, Hank is the gray cat that was greeting you on the way in. And I've checked, and in all likelihood, when the house sells, Hank does not stay with the house. But here's the thing about Hank. Hank is like the most social cat I have ever met in my life. That has not always been true, I learned the other day. She's Hank's third owner because Hank was a jerk. Hank was an aggressive, uncontrollable, nasty cat who, if you came anywhere in his proximity, would literally attack you for no apparent reason. I know, right? I'm like, are we talking about the same Hank? Hank is evidence of what changes with changing social interaction. Hank's first two guardians, for what, I don't know who they were, doesn't matter. Whatever was happening in that relationship was not working for Hank. Okay? And he was communicating really clearly, this does not work for me. Okay? Hank pretty much does his own thing, and he engages a much broader community than I knew. He has certain houses throughout this whole 3-block area where he has breakfast on certain mornings of the week. Seriously, he's got a better calendar than I have. He has lunch at different houses. He has dinner at different houses. He has his... Now, Hank, I don't know what Hank's got going on, but Hank's got it figured out. He has his own room in that house next door. And he pays no rent. I need to spend more time with Hank. The whole point of it is how interaction can change us. How other people aren't necessarily who we think they are if we'll give them a chance. Are we willing to stand in that uncomfortable trench, heart-centered? Because for me to be with you heart-centered when everything I'm experiencing of you feels like hatred toward me, I have to turn this off. And I have to focus here. It doesn't mean I stop paying attention to my physical surroundings, because there are people on the planet who, for whatever reason, choose to hurt other people. So I don't, trust me, there's no part of me that goes, just kind of bop around, ignore everything. No. Okay. I pay attention to my physical surroundings, and I pay attention to them at the same level that I'm paying attention to, this is a lectern, and this is a program, and this is a notebook. I'm simply identifying what's there. It's when we extrapolate and start our creative writing process that we are no longer paying attention to what's in our environment. And just so you know, on a physical level, that makes you infinitely more unsafe. Okay? Because when you're looking for something, you are no longer seeing what's there. I used to manage a security company. And we had the account up at Bodega Bay. And Deborah was actually on the job. And the power went out, and the fire department comes up, and thank goodness she's paying attention, because they were not. The wire was down in a puddle, and they're about to step right into the puddle. Not a good plan. So even with the best training, if we think we already know what the problem is, we miss what the problem is. Okay? Heart-centered social engagement. We talked very briefly last week about a young man who appeared to be protesting when really that wasn't what he was doing at all. He was communicating his confusion and his terror. What if there's something going on that you don't know about? And what if what you're responding to just makes that hidden thing worse? Okay? We can't heal this planet by creating more stuff. We can't heal one another by throwing money at each other's discontent. We can't heal our relationships like this. I don't like what you said, so I'm not talking to you anymore. We can't heal that way. We have to go to our heart, which is the core of our being, is the life-giving part of us. And it only knows love. So if you're experiencing a social interaction that feels less than loving, go deeper. Go deeper. I'm not suggesting you ignore behavior. I'm suggesting that you experience the behavior through the filter of love instead of the filter of, I told you. See, I knew that was going to happen. Okay? Stop getting stuck in the wrapping paper. Find the gift inside. Let's take this into prayer. Knowing there's only one infinite, ever-present life, that it is peace, power, perfection, wholeness, completeness, harmony, balance, brilliance, abundance. Knowing it is the only thing there is, I know that it must have its home in every expression of life, from the smallest grain of sand to the most visible human expression, and everything in between. And so I speak my word in this moment, declaring my intention to meet the divine in everyone from the divine in me. Knowing that as I do, it becomes empowered, it becomes engaged, and solutions become self-evident. That love heals everything unlike itself, and so the demand that I say yes to is seeing beyond everything unlike love to the core of love itself and engaging there. So grateful to know that as I speak it, it is done. And so I step into an experience of this physical life knowing that this moment has changed me and my interactions moving forward. And so I anticipate stepping into those places, those opportunities to fulfill this intention, to make it so. Grateful to know how consciousness, law, and effect work. Grateful to yield to that process through conscious, intentional awareness. And so from this place of gratitude, from this heart of my being, I release my word, which is literally the word of consciousness itself spoken as me, into the activity of consciousness that we call law. And I simply let it be, trusting that law knows what to do and when to do it. I invite you, if this is your intention, if this is your prayer, too, to anchor it with me together by saying, and so it is.